part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome to Producing While Asian. This is your host, Don Mike Mendoza, and welcome to our conversation with Sharon delPilar. Sharon is based in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I met her doing a project in 2021, which we'll talk about. And she is a professional stage manager and producer, an all-around amazing human. So I'm not going to say much because I'll let us get into our conversation, but I hope you enjoy, and welcome to Producing While Asian.
Hi, Sharon, and welcome to Producing While Asian.
Hi, Don Mike. Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's so good to have you here. And it's great because I get to kind of talk with you and get to know you more after currently working on this team with you for this special project that we'll mention later. So we're here just to talk about your story and, hopefully get into the ears of other AAPI people to inspire them to either support or be part of the arts. So I'm going to let you take it away. So tell our audience a little bit about you and yourself and how you got into your career path and all of those good things.
Great. My name is Sharon delPilar. I am living in Las Vegas currently, and I have been basically a stage manager for about 20 years. And my career path is maybe a little bit different from many other people in that it was never my intention to get into show business. It was never something that I ever considered something to do as a career. Growing up, I thought that I was going to become a physical therapist. It was actually something I really enjoyed. And my ideas and my thoughts changed when I was in college. And sort of being unsure of which direction I wanted to go, it just happened that the university newspaper had an ad that said, Disney's coming to your campus. Come and see our presentation. And I thought, I really like Disney. I enjoy travel and tourism. So maybe that's something I want to get into. I'll go check out this presentation. And it was actually for their college program internship. And so it sounded like a great opportunity. You were going to get to work at Walt Disney World and then get to take some courses and some workshops with some professionals and sort of get to learn the business side and the philosophies of the Walt Disney Company. And so I took an internship with them, and just sort of by chance, because they don't tell you exactly where you're going to be, what department you're going to be assigned to, just by chance, I happened to be assigned to the entertainment department. And that was sort of my first foray in theme park entertainment, somewhat professional entertainment, something that wasn't just at my high school. And it was something that I really, really took to. I really enjoyed it. I had a great time. And I ended up actually coming back after my internship was over and started working there full time. And learned a lot about, putting parades and shows together and kind of how the theme park world works. And about 3 years of being there, I had pretty much done everything I wanted to do. And I wanted to try something else in entertainment. And I took an internship in New York City with a Broadway producing company. And I learned about the business side of entertainment and theater by working with the company managers and the general managers on these, big Broadway shows.
Yeah.
That internship.
That's a big job.
Oh yeah. It was fast paced and there was so much to learn. And what was great about that particular internship program was you weren't just there to be essentially cheap labor. They actually provided learning opportunities. So each week they take all of the interns in the office in the conference room and they would have a guest speaker. Maybe one week it was a producer. Then the next week it would be somebody who worked in marketing. Then another week it would be a stage manager. So you got to get experience to learn about all the different aspects of what it takes to put on a Broadway show. So I was really appreciative for that, and that we got that exposure and could kind of find what we enjoyed. And that internship turned into a full-time job. Very lucky for me in that I was able to sort of keep my foot in the business, get that networking in with all these big Broadway producers and people on Broadway shows. And then on nights and weekends, I would volunteer with so many different nonprofit theater companies. There were so many in New York, and they were always looking for volunteers. So it was kind of a great marriage, because I was looking for experience and they were looking for free help. And so it worked out really well. And that's where I determined my love for stage management. I learned that I'd like to be at the theater, being a part of the nightly performances. So then that's where I started to sort of focus on stage managing. And again, really, really supportive office that I was working for, and gave me opportunities to be a part of the stage management team as a production assistant on these, big Broadway shows. And my very first production assistant job was on the musical Hairspray. And, to be able to sit in on these table reads that happened, a year, 2 years before it ever hit the Broadway stage was so amazing. And to see how the show evolved with each reading every 6 months that they would do it. And, we all went to Seattle with this show. We had rehearsed it in New York. We went to Seattle to do an out-of-town tryout. No one knew what the outcome would be, how the audience would respond to the show. It was just sort of us in a rehearsal room for 5-6 weeks. Yeah. And, we all thought it was a good show, but was the audience going to think the same thing? Mm-hmm. And just to hear that audience, that first night that we had, was just, we knew that this show was going to be a hit. And it was so emotional and so incredible. And again, it was one of those, it really proved to me, this is where I want to be. I want to do this kind of work. I love that feeling, hearing that audience and knowing that I played a part in that, in creating this and supporting, the show being on stage. And so then from there, everything sort of just snowballed from there, went from opportunity to opportunity, was given another chance to PA on the revival of Flower Drum Song, and eventually took that out on the road as an assistant stage manager. And as luck would have it, I got brought out to Las Vegas, and with the idea of I was going to help open some Broadway shows out here. And I thought, I could be in Vegas for a few months and then come back to New York. And so
here you are.
And here I am 17 years later, still in Vegas. And I love it. And I'm so grateful that I've had the opportunity to work on some really incredible shows, so many different types of shows, because it's now not just musical theater that I've worked on. I've, had the opportunity to work on circus type shows, magic shows, other shows that are kind of hybrids of all different types. And it's been a really great ride so far.
Yeah, that's incredible. To be in the room before Hairspray was Hairspray, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's one of the most cherished memories that I have, not only because it was one of the first professional jobs I had in my career, but also because it was so special to see it go from, the first reading that I did had a completely different director, was only written at that point as one act. It hadn't been completely developed, had so many different songs than what ended up in the actual show. And just to see it grow from there, and to see costumes being added, scenery being added, props being added, all those elements that sort of go into it. And just to watch that journey was just so special. And I'm so grateful to have had that opportunity to be a part of it.
And it's really cool to know that you were part of the revival of Flower Drum Song. So in my kind of journey as an actor first and now producer, when I was in theater school, my voice teacher, his whole goal was, you're an Asian American man, you need to study certain musicals. Flower Drum Song is one of them. And here's Jose Lana's repertoire. You need to learn exactly what he does. I'm like, okay, great. And it's funny because now I know him, but it's, as a 19-year-old, I'm like, oh, one day, who knows? But I didn't know if I would ever meet anybody who was part of that production, let alone was in it. So it's cool to hear the other side of that story. And, as somebody who was on the creative side and the production team. So in all of that, getting to today, how has your experience kind of made you dabble in or work in producing? Because I know your main focus is stage management, but in our projects together that we're working on, you're on the producing team. So tell me a little bit about that relationship, because I know those two things, they kind of go hand in hand a little bit, because the skill sets are very similar, just depending on how much you'd like to be in the room. Where producers are like, yeah, I'm there, but I have, don't need to be there for the actual production most of the time. But stage managers are the den mom, like making sure everybody's like good. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, producing is something that's fairly new to me, but as you did say, a lot of the skill set as a stage manager and a producer, they overlap a lot. Mm-hmm. And I'm really enjoying it. This project that we're working on together is really exciting. And I think that there's a really great future for it ahead. And I'm just really proud to be invited to be on the team and kind of get my feet wet in sort of the producing world and doing what I can to help make this dream a reality.
So on our scale that we present to each guest of 1 to producer, where do you fall and why or why not? And the reason why is that for those of us tuning in for the first time, there is no definition of a producer. It's really just a person in each industry, but you don't have, it's not as black and white as like, say, an oncologist versus a radiologist, like producers kind of blend in to whatever industry they're in. So in terms of your experience, where do you find yourself on that spectrum?
I'm going to say I'm pretty low right now, just because I'm only really getting started in producing, but I find it really interesting. So I don't know, maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But it's a start. And
for sure.
I think there's a lot of exciting things that are happening with this project that we're working on together. And just to be able to see and to try out that side of it, I find really interesting. And also because you gain a greater appreciation for what other people do, because ultimately it's a collaboration, right? We're all working together towards the same goal. And by understanding what each role does, even if you may not go down to the nitty-gritty, at least you have that overall understanding and can appreciate the work that gets put in to what each person has to contribute to the project.
Sure. And now that our industry, as we all know, has gone through this 22-month blip where things just basically disappeared overnight, we had to rethink things. And in a lot of my conversations with people, they've been talking about organizations that are coming back or have survived the past 22, 23 months in the quarantine. And, for me, I've noticed the organizations that are really making a strong comeback and that have really made an effort to survive are those organizations that are leading with awareness and kind of like the phrase leading with love, in the sense that, like, yes, collectively we're all going through trauma, but there are also more hot button issues that were revealed because of this trauma. And there are a lot of places and people and organizations that were able to tune into that, plug in, and really find a way to help, even if their own situation was a little dire based upon like what jobs they still had or didn't have. So now that we're kind of slowly coming out of it, which I'm very excited about, coming back in as a stage manager, what are your kind of expectations? Because we have all seen the news stories about like very big names in our industry who were like, cool, glad Broadway's coming back, but I'm not coming back until there's like true equity, things like that. And people leaving very well-known shows in the before times and now are saying, well, it hasn't changed. So, in your opinion and in your view, in our return, what would you like to see happen, I guess? Like when you come back, what would you like to see be here and be improved upon? And what are the things that you wish or you hope stay in the before times, that, we're good, we saw that, but we don't need that coming back? So I know it's a very broad question, but what do you think?
Well, I think that this pandemic, I will say, as tough as it has been for so many people all around the world, there have been some, as we'll call, pandemic positives. It's given people the opportunity to reflect, to sort of quiet down your mind, reflect on what has been going on in your life, what's been going on in the world, and how do we improve that? How do we make things better? And, because in the before times, everybody has been so busy just dealing with life that we never really had time to really sit down, talk about this stuff, focus on it, and really center on how do we be better. And I think that's the gift that has been given to us over the last couple of years. And now that things are starting to reopen, life is kind of getting back to some sort of new normal. This is our time now to put those words into action. And all these promises and these ideas that are being set forth, it's now time to get some accountability going. Companies and organizations and people pledging for equity. Well, now here's your time to put your words to life.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be our responsibility, everybody's responsibility, to hold everybody, ourselves, each other, accountable for what needs to happen next. And it's not going to be an easy road. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's going to be successes, there's going to be failures. But I think the most important thing is that we keep moving, and that we keep pushing for the equity that we want, the equality that we're seeking. And it's not, I don't believe that it's an end goal, like it's an end destination, that it's going to be a continuous journey, because there's always some way that we can do better. But let's keep moving forward.
Yeah. And one really big part of it too is patience. I know that we get really excited when something positive happens or some progress moves into sight and we achieve a goal. But I know a lot of folks, myself included, get very impatient when we're like, cool, what's next? Like, how do we keep pushing it and trying to ride this wave of momentum when really momentum is awesome, but it's like kind of learning how to control that momentum and ride it smartly, if that makes sense. Because I know we don't want to like blow it all up and then like a month later we're like, well, nothing, and kind of getting that excitement going. So what are your thoughts on that piece of it?
I also think that it's sort of going along with the momentum. I think it's also important that we acknowledge the small victories. So not everything can be this like big blowout change. I think those small victories are just as important, because they're the stepping stones, and they maybe also be what we need to gain that momentum to getting those bigger changes to happen. So let's not discount little things, little actions that help in the overall goal that we're looking for.
For sure.
For the Dennis Maniloff Show, I'll tap into my 40-plus years of following Cleveland sports and 30-plus years of writing and talking about them, so as to bring you informed opinions and analysis of your favorite players and teams. I also will monitor the national sports scene and, when warranted, step out of the toy department and into the real world. And I'll always be on the lookout for special guests. By all means, join us.
This is Sharon delPilar, and you're listening to Producing While Asian.
So I want to kind of shift a little bit and talk about the kind of entertainment scene in Vegas, because being an East Coaster and someone who grew up in Pittsburgh and DC, when we hear the words Las Vegas, we think gambling and we think, showgirls, and we think nothing else. We're just like, oh, it's that one place where there's all the casinos and lights, and the people live like a block away from there. And so tell our audience a little bit about just the scene that you're part of in Las Vegas, like in terms of the entertainment, whether it be theatrical, or what you mentioned earlier with like magic shows and circus and stuff like that. Kind of paint us a picture of what the arts community looks like in Las Vegas outside of Celine on tour forever. Like what else is there in the Strip and beyond for people to explore and see?
Sure. I would say that in the 17 years that I've been living in Las Vegas, entertainment has really evolved and is constantly shifting. When I was first here, I came out here because there was a lot of musical theater. A lot of Broadway shows were opening up companies in Las Vegas. Some of them were doing truncated versions, 90-minute versions of their full-length shows from New York. But it was the entire creative team from that Broadway show coming to mount the shows here in Vegas. And they, at the time, were dubbing Vegas as Broadway of the West. So it was sort of a really exciting time. You had multiple musical theater shows that were opening up on the Strip all around the same time. And we, at that time, really developed a wonderful theater community here because so many people had come to Vegas from New York, LA, various parts from tour maybe, to come and do these shows here. So we had a really nice theater community and it's all socialized together. We have different events. An event that was established, it's a monthly sort of a cabaret type show. It's called the Composer Showcase. And it's now been going on for about 15 or 16 years. And once a month, it's not an open mic, I should say, that it's a very well planned out evening of performances. And it's all original music by composers, performers that want to just, maybe they, on the side, they have just written a song, or somebody is a music director in town is writing a musical and they want to put this out into the public, but maybe in a more welcoming space. So the Composer Showcase provided an opportunity for people to do things like that. And from that, we were sort of the testing grounds for the musical Bandstand, which eventually did go to Broadway. So it was kind of fun to be a part of that and to know that Bandstand was written here in Las Vegas by, local musicians, and that we were one of the first to hear music from that show. And that's a really great opportunity that still continues to this day. And as things shifted again in entertainment here, we moved sort of from the musical theater world to nightclubs. Nightclubs became the thing, and DJs were a big thing here. And there was a big struggle of the competition where people were hesitant, tourists were hesitant to purchase a $100 ticket to come see Phantom of the Opera, but they had no hesitation in spending $1,000 on bottle service and going to see, Steve Aoki spin for a night. And now it's shifted even a little bit more. And now the big thing in Vegas are headline performers, the Celine Dion's, the Katy Perry's, Carrie Underwood. I mean, everybody is doing some sort of a residency here now. So that's a big thing. And of course, longer than all of these has been Cirque du Soleil. They've been a part of the Las Vegas landscape for a very long time, have had multiple shows, big spectacle shows that involve not only acrobats, but musicians, singers. And that's sort of, I think that's probably the biggest thing that Vegas is known for in terms of shows, just because most often you don't have a Cirque du Soleil show coming through your town. Unless you're a big city and maybe one of their touring shows do come through, but it's very rare. And most people will come here to Las Vegas to come see a Cirque show. And so intertwined in there, there's always magic shows of various sizes. There are hypnotists, there are, special one-off events. I had been a part of America's Got Talent Live for many
Oh,
years.
nice.
And that is basically the winner of the show. You know, they always advertise on the television show, the winner gets their own show in Vegas. So that's where I come into play. And the winner of that past season comes in, has their headline show, and they'll also bring in some really popular fan favorite runner-ups to come and perform sort of as, you know, an opening act for the winner. So every year it's a different show. We're never quite sure what kinds of acts we're going to get. We're always kind of watching the very end of the season to see, okay, well, maybe it's going to be this group, and kind of figure out the pieces and parts of, okay, if this person's the winner, then these groups, these runner-ups will be great openers. But if this person wins, then it's going to be, you know, these other groups will be great support. So that's always been a fun event, and so widely popular because people actually seem to come from all over the country for those shows to come and see their favorite performer from the TV show. And more, there are TV shows that are being filmed here, unscripted shows, competition shows that get filmed here. I mean, there's so many different things. I think that people just don't realize. And I don't know, maybe if that's because they're, you know, the close proximity to LA or what, but there's so many different great entertainment opportunities that are out here, that are happening, that continue to happen, and, you know, big plans for the future.
And do you see a big presence of like smaller independent art as well? Like in terms of like smaller theater companies or smaller spaces, you know, and that kind of demographic of the industry. Do you see a lot of that there as well?
I do. Yeah. So I feel like over the last few years, there has been a real big development of just general community, which is really nice. Early on when I was here, this place was very transient. And so no one really took pride in, you know, living in Las Vegas or being from Las Vegas. And just over these last few years, I feel like the city has really come together. And part of that is because of community programs that we've had, like the Smith Center for the Performing Arts has a lot of theater programs. They do some black box theater stuff, in addition to, of course, the big Broadway tours that will come through. They'll do small cabarets. We have some really wonderful community theater groups like Vegas Valley Concerts. They do some really wonderful theater. We have a great community that's been going on for quite a few years in the summertime. It's called Super Summer Theater, and it's out towards the mountains. It's beautiful. It's all outdoors. Bring your picnic blankets and
very cool.
And, you know, and your food and your bottle of wine, and sit down on the lawn with your friends and family. And as the sun is setting, enjoy West Side Story, or the following month, it'll be Beauty and the Beast or something like that. And it's all done and all performed and all run by local performers. So it's really great to see that local talent. And you realize that there's so much more than just the talent that's on the strip.
Like, do you tell me if you agree with me or not? I feel like with all of the COVID stuff that's gone on, I feel like we're going to have a nice kind of return to outdoor entertainment in a strange way, where it's like we're going to see a resurgence of like drive-in theaters and a resurgence of like outdoor theater, like what you're describing, and, you know, places where people can go outside, like on the East Coast in DC, it's Wolf Trap, you know, where people are outside on a lawn enjoying theater, whether it be in the daytime or at night. Like, do you feel that that's kind of a trend that we're seeing? Because I'm definitely seeing it in other places around here on the East Coast.
I certainly hope that it continues. There's been a lot this summer and in these early months in the spring that have sort of popped up these really great ideas. One that I attended recently was a group called Cirque Mechanics. And they're a bunch of circus performers. Many of them have worked for Cirque du Soleil and other circus type companies. And they put a show together and did a partnership with a golf course, a local golf course. And they set up a stage in the golf course. And when you bought your tickets, you could either buy a golf cart that was pre-parked in its spot, and you can sit in the golf cart, or they had spray painted on the grass, a little square, and that's where you and your party of 4 can sit and bring your blankets, or they provided lawn chairs. And very similar to Super Summer Theater, as the sun was setting with this beautiful mountain backdrop, they put on this really amazing show. And then you have another group of circus performers just recently put on a show called, I believe it was called Ignite. And this one was out in the middle of the desert, very close to the California border. And it was kind of a camp out overnight kind of a thing. And they did 2 shows, one on Friday and one on Saturday. We've seen drive up concerts pop up over the last couple of months. And I think they've even had some bigger bands be a part of that. And while it's really exciting, because obviously I think a lot of people have been craving some sort of live entertainment for the last year, I hope that it's a trend that continues, because I just think it was so much fun. It was so unique. It was just nice to enjoy the outdoors. Particularly here in Vegas, we have such a beautiful backdrop of the mountains, and the springtime for us is really gorgeous and really beautiful. Temperatures are very comfortable before we start, getting into the middle of summer when it's triple digits. But I hope that these groups will continue to do this in, well beyond the pandemic, because I think it's a unique opportunity and something great for the locals, because as a Las Vegas local, you don't really go to the Strip. So whatever your entertainment is going to be elsewhere. And this is really, these kinds of shows are really homegrown, and I think people really enjoy them. And it's just a great opportunity to get out and enjoy some time with friends and family and go see a great show.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I would love to see outdoor events become a stronger part of the entertainment industry again, just because of the idea of, you can be distant without having to be obnoxious about it. And like, you can be outside and see nature. And so I do hope that too, that we see more outdoor theater companies coming to life in light of what happened, and drive-in movie theaters. Like those were pretty much dead, by the time this pandemic started. And now, like in Pittsburgh, I've seen like several of them pop up, and some that were kind of reviving themselves, and they were like about to close. And all of a sudden this happened, and now they're like, couldn't be busier, which is really exciting. So talk to us a little bit about, given all that time, seeing all of that change in the Vegas market, speaking more specifically with yourself and your own experiences. I know that, we're really hearing more and more stories about people's personal trials going through, or not going through, but navigating our industry as people of color, and especially as a woman of color on the side of the industry that's, I want to say, even more male dominated than our, on stage part of what we do. Tell us a little bit about that part of your journey. Any, I don't want to say bad things, but talk about kind of challenges that you face that you're super proud that you've gotten through, and how can you help other people learn from what you've seen and what you've gone through, and what kind of advice can you impart based on that?
Sure. My experience, I feel like I was very lucky in that moving in and through my career, I never really felt that my race, my gender, any of that none of that played an important role in the advancement of my career or hindered me. I was very lucky in that I was supported by people who just looked at my work. They saw my work ethic. They felt that that I could contribute. Of course, in very maybe stereotypical experiences, of course, I would be called by the name of another Asian or Filipino stage manager that I didn't even know. And I have come to know in recent years, but we don't look anything alike. We, I don't think we
Same.
act the same. It's just
Yeah.
because we both happen to be Asian or so. But I think really that was really it. But I surrounded myself with people who valued my work, gave me an opportunity, and I also found opportunities to collaborate with people who were sort of in the same boat as me, who understood my story, my journey, because they were going through the same things. So in that regard, those experiences were also so meaningful to me and so helpful. But I've always grown up, when I was in elementary school, I went to an Irish Catholic private school, and I was the only Asian in my class. But then going into junior high and high school, I had moved to a different suburb and went to public school. And the junior high and the high school that I went to was one of the most diverse schools in the area. And it's
Nice.
one now that I reflect on and am so grateful that I went to school there, because it instilled in me and all of my classmates that doesn't matter where you come from. We're all here together, but we also celebrated who we were and what our backgrounds were. Our school was so supportive of throwing an international celebration day, and they opened up the gymnasium, and the Korean club would have a booth, and the Filipino club would have a booth, and the Southeast Asian club would have a booth, and all these different ethnicities would have their own representation and would either do a performance from their culture. They would sell food. And it was really great. And I know that there are so many people that didn't have that kind of experience, so that I did growing up. And so when I moved out into the real world as an adult, that was never something that was in my mind, because it was just always ingrained in me. And I don't know, maybe it's just because of that I've always been attracted to people who are sort of that mind of, I'm not looking at you because you're a woman. I'm not looking at you because you're Asian, either negatively, positively. We're looking straight at your work ethic, what you have to contribute to the project, to the work, and your value, basically.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like that connects into like kind of a sub question in terms of in our industry and hiring and being on the stage management team. You're in on those meetings most times in terms of casting or picking the production team or things like that, in certain conversations. And so definitely not asking you to give us a solution, but, in what you've seen, how do you think we can, like, on the producer side, how can producers be a little more mindful about hiring in that vein of what you're talking about in terms of, looking at skill and hopefully it turning out to be somebody who's less represented on the team, like having more women, more people of color, more LGBTQ plus, without it being a quote unquote diversity hire, I guess in your mind, like, what do you feel is like a good suggestion in terms of how can they go looking for sources of people that are beyond the normal, so if that makes sense, how do you think we as producers should go about looking for better sources of diversity? Because I know the excuse that comes up a lot is like, well, they just don't show up, or like, oh, they just don't come here, and they completely put it on the community that they're trying to pull in. And even in, speaking specifically at casting, is how you end up with like, somebody who's not, I guess, not Asian playing an Asian character, and controversies that have happened as recently as 3 years ago, in terms of, a certain Jerome Robbins tribute concert. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a combination. I think that it's the responsibility of both sides. So I think that someone like me, a stage manager who would be searching for work, take this opportunity. This is actually, again, a pandemic positive. Mm-hmm. This has been a really great opportunity to reach out to general managers, directors, other people in the industry and start networking. Everybody has a little bit more free time to get to know people. Producers can have different events, networking events, where they invite people of color to participate. There have been certain events like that have been really wonderful. There's an organization that was recently created called Broadway and Beyond, and it was created by 3 Broadway stage managers of color. And they have put on I think 3 or 4 different events so far in the last 6 months, where it was all networking opportunities. So stage managers of color had the opportunity to speak with, network with, and get to know general managers, other stage managers, company managers, and whatnot in the business who are not necessarily of color, but are in high profile roles and also who contribute to hiring. So things like that have been really great opportunities. I know that beyond that, certain offices have tried to develop types of events where they're inviting people of color to come and contribute, to discuss how can we do better. Of course, that's always the goal. And again, as we talked about before, it's about now as we're moving into things are really happening, let's get people accountable for it. And it's opening up those opportunities. It's such a hard thing to do because a lot of times the way that it works, at least for stage managers and probably a lot of other roles, is that it's about who you know, right? It's not, I'm going to put out an ad in the newspaper and just see who applies. It's about a phone call saying, hey, I need somebody. Do you know someone that's available? And then you're just kind of going by whatever your own little circle of people are. So it's going to be sort of this weird puzzle piece of the producers working on opening up to get to widen their network. It's going to be about the individual performers, stage managers, and whatnot, expanding and reaching out to these people to say, hey, I'm here. You know, what opportunities do you have? Here's what I have to offer. Here's the value that I bring to a production. It's going to be just the constant work of networking, casting that wide net, reaching out to different types outside of whatever your normal network is. If you're always going to the same types of schools, because if you're looking for somebody who's about to graduate, going to maybe a school that you wouldn't normally reach out to, talking to schools that maybe have a higher diversity count. There's the possibilities are endless, and it's really just, it's outreach and going to places that you normally wouldn't think of.
Definitely. And it goes back to the idea of patience, just, one project at a time, one person at a time, we'll get there, but, it's that's just kind of staying focused, so to speak.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. I created this podcast to have hard conversations that make us human but are also wildly uncomfortable, conversations that help give voice to the voiceless and to the marginalized. Now you can listen to the entire first season on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Consider this your personal invitation to join the conversation.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Powell, co-host of the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast. Check us out anywhere you listen to podcasts. For all your Browns coverage, post-game, pre-game, anything you need Browns, you'll find it here on the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast.
This is Sharon delPilar, and you're listening to Producing While Asian.
Given all of that, tell us now a little bit about where you are currently, kind of what projects are you on, what's happening in your entertainment life and stage management life. Where can people see your work, really, that's happening right now?
So many great things. I'm after over a year and a half of not working, but building my network and, spending the time building my network, building my skill set, all of that stuff that I could do from home. It's all sort of, I'm cashing in now. I'm getting to cash in and I'm getting to reap the benefits of the work that I've been doing, especially in this last year and a half. And we've just opened Magic Mike Live, which is directed and produced by Channing Tatum. It's in a new venue. It was previously at the Hard Rock Casino, which no longer exists. And it's now at Sahara, Las Vegas. And we'll hopefully have a very long, extended run with our very diverse cast, I should point out. It's one of the things I'm most proud of about this show is how incredibly diverse, not only the dancers, but also the crew. We have such great representation amongst all departments, and that includes front of house as well. And I think it just really showed, and that was something that was very important from the very beginning, was to have great diversity in all aspects. And I think it really shows in our show. So we're very excited that we are reopened, and just a great show and a great time for not only bachelorette parties and birthday parties, but team building. It's a lot of fun. It's not the show that people think it is. I will say our cast is extremely talented. They all sort of come from the commercial dance background, the commercial dance world. And before they joined us, they were on tour with, the Britney Spears of the world, the Lady Gaga. They were all dancing for all these high profile artists all over the world. So we're very proud and we're very lucky to have them with us. So that's one project.
Mike's, and it's not just one city, right? Magic Mike is international.
Correct. Yes, we were the flagship company to open back in 4 years ago, I would say, at the Hard Rock. And since then, we've opened companies in London, Berlin, and Australia, which is currently touring Australia. And they've just recently announced a UK tour that will be happening as well. So the Magic Mike Live brand is really expanding all over the world. And each show is very unique. And I encourage everyone to come out and see it because it's not what you think it is. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And I think that there's something for everybody to enjoy in the show.
And I know our team is excited to come in and check it out. So the project that we're working on together is this, hopefully will become what'll be an annual event called Marahuyo, which is a Filipino word for enchantment. And Sharon, you are our production stage manager and fellow executive producer on this project. So talk to us a little bit about, how that's been going for you. I know at this point we've been in it for like almost 6 months. So, developing and traveling around the country and raising money. And so in this experience, this really is, like you mentioned at the top of the hour, your entree into producing in like a very big way.
Yeah, it's been really exciting. I think it's a passion project for everybody involved. And there's just so much excitement around it, and the ideas that have been coming about and the different iterations and possibilities of what we want to present have been really exciting and something that I don't think has been done before. So I'm happy that we're going to get to share this not only with people in Las Vegas, but all over the country and even all over the world through some of our potential streaming opportunities that we may partnerships that we might have to expand our audience. And without revealing too much of, the ideas that have come about, I think that this is going to be a really unique experience, and it's going to be a really great chance to highlight our fellow Filipino performers and artists from everywhere in all different forms of entertainment media, and put them at the forefront and show the world what they can do. And it's really nice to sort of have that platform. And also to be able to grow our community of Filipinos in the arts is really nice. I didn't know you before this, and I'm so grateful for it. I mean, even though we have so many friends in common, this has been really a really great opportunity for me to get to know you, for me to have the chance to work with you, and who knows what that will bring beyond this project. And that's really exciting to me.
And it's, a lot of us have heard of each other or have, like 3 degrees away of each other. And, it's super, super acknowledgement and thanks to Cheryl Darrow at the Space LV and Monday's Dark and Mark Chinook for believing in this dream and helping make this come to life, really. And so big things are coming for the rest of 2021 and in 2022. I was not hooked into this national network that we've created of Filipinos and Filipino Americans. And, it's just exciting to see. And, we have several partners so far, and, we've got SNRG in Washington, D.C., and Broadway Barcada, and my own company, Latino Productions, and Definitive Talents in Las Vegas. It's just this big powwow. Super excited that it brought us together professionally and, and hopefully as friends too. And, we'll see what we're doing. But 6 months in, it's pretty great. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But people can stay updated on that. Just watch all of those companies I mentioned, because we'll all be talking about it across our platforms. So you're at Magic Mike. How can people get a ticket to Magic Mike and come and see what you're managing and also potentially meet you, at the show?
Well, if you happen to be in Las Vegas, tickets can be found on magicmikelivelasvegas.com or through Ticketmaster. And we will run shows pretty much. Our typical schedule will be Wednesday through Sunday, 7:30, 10 o'clock shows. Yeah, our show's about 90 minutes long. So come out, plan a night out with the girls or the guys, and come out and enjoy the show and have a drink with us. Before, after the show, we have this really wonderful lounge area that's right outside of the theater that is really welcoming and he's got a really great vibe to it. So we really want people to have a real, true, immersive experience at our show. You're not merely coming just to sit down and enjoy a show. There's it's a whole immersive experience from the moment you set foot in our venue.
Awesome. So I want to thank you for being on this show in the inaugural season of Producing While Asian. It was so nice to talk with you beyond a production meeting and
That's
hear
right.
your story
Yes.
and know where you came from and kind of what we'll be doing together in the future. And so just know anytime you're welcome to come back and let us know if there are things you want to bring up or topics you want to highlight. And this season is mostly like one-on-one conversations or small group conversations with one organization. And so we'll move into the future and hopefully have crossover episodes where we bring people together from different parts of the community to chat with each other. So it was really great to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm so glad that you're doing this. I think it's a great platform, and I wish you guys the best and can't wait to see more.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Producing While Asian podcast. Our theme song was created by Luckstock. We are produced by Press Play Podcast, and the show is edited by Michael Santos Sandoval. If you have a moment, please leave a review and a rating, and be sure to send us any topic ideas you have to producingwhileasian@gmail.com. To follow us, stay updated, and read our blog, visit www.producingwhileasian.com. We hope you join us again soon.